I work first of all with the Human Impacts Institute, which is an organization based here in Brooklyn that works with sustainability both on a local level in Brooklyn, doing a lot of retrofitting and education programs with youth and communities, but that also looks broader and involves itself in the international negotiations that we've been talking about. So I've been working for the past year with the UN process since the previous conference on sustainable development last May, and have been in an interesting position in the run-up to Rio+20 as a young person myself, but also as kind of one of the vital parts of civil society. So with the Human Impacts Institute, what we're seeing in the lead up to Rio is a real lack of US leadership, which I think many people have seen examples of. But we have in civil society many organizations that are working for Rio+20, that are working towards environmental issues in general, but no coherence between these organizations. So what we started a few months ago was just trying to bring these organizations together and to share our common goals and to work together on these issues to strengthen the US and to give political will, to build political will in the country so that our leaders then can go forward at Rio+20 and really represent us. So this coalition is called Mobilize Us, and we have now over 70 partner organizations in the United States working together. And this is organizations from NRDC working at a real policy level to 350.org that's focusing on action to Global Kids focusing on youth. So these different organizations coming together and just broadening the conversation about Rio+20 in their own communities. So one thing that we were able to do was hold an action tour. We called it this past spring, that each of these organizations in their own communities around the country could host any sort of event that they had the resources to do. So that could be, in Boston they had an amazing music competition. So it was called, the Sounding Board organization started it, and it was just getting people to write creative music about Rio+20 and then bringing that all together and holding a concert. And so it was really amazing. It got all of Boston, the mayor's office was there, high school choirs, and all these people were just singing about Rio+20. And things like that can really mobilize a community around something that was not really even part of the conversation before. And that's what one of our big focuses has been in the United States, is just getting people to know about what Rio+20 is. Because there's a lot of environmental activism in the country, but if we don't even know these big UN processes are going on, we can't empower our leaders to do something at them. So that was one tour stop. And then the other tour event, one of the other big tour events that we had was a citizen summit up at Yale University in end of March now. So it brought a lot of these people in civil society together from US and Canada to talk about these issues and to make a clear civil society way forward. And that, it worked and it didn't work. It got really amazing conversations sparked and discussions, and it was great also to see the governmental leaders that showed up for it, especially Canadian and US representatives that could come and join in on the conversation. But still, what I personally think we're at is kind of a similar situation to where our governments are at, in that so many people have amazing ideas and places that they want to work for, but there's not really strong coherence in where we can bring these. So hopefully, moving forward in the next couple of weeks towards Rio, as a coalition, we're trying to target Obama and high leaders in the United States to actually come to the conference and represent us there. So hopefully that will come, but with the election and with this important year, he might be needed other places. So we'll see about that. And then the other thing that I'm involved in through Human Impacts Institute and also as a student is the My City +20 movement. So this is a group of students in Paris last year wanted to get people together into the Rio+20 process and to educate young people on the UN. So the way they decided to do this was to have a simulation of Rio+20, kind of in the model UN style, where each student would come and represent a country, learn about each country's positions, and hold their own mock. They called it Paris+20. And this idea amazingly spread all over the world. Cities from Rome, Vienna, Mexico City, Kampala in Uganda, Mumbai, they all wanted to take on their idea and create their own conferences. So we in New York heard about this through the wonders of social media, and wanted to work together and do something similar. And especially in this location with the UN right here and with all of the great experts here, we thought New York+20 could really be something big that could go beyond just New York. So what we did is, as students at Columbia and working with students from colleges all over the New York City area and region, was create this conference. And we faced called New York+20, sorry. And we faced our own difficulties as students with no resources, with very little support from just our university at first as we were trying to build this movement. But what we found is when we worked together, ground up, partnered with each other through social media aspects, through weekly meetings and whatever, we could really build something going forward that we wanted. So the conference itself, what we wanted to do was do a kind of different youth engagement tactic than a simulation. So the simulation style is great for getting people educated on the issues and getting them to work with them, but we wanted youth to not only pretend to be part of the conference, but to actually become part of Rio+20 and to represent their own views. So we structured it in that we would educate them with hands-on presentations from experts. So that's ambassadors and academics and people from civil society that have really been working with these issues, and to educate them on them, but then flip the tables and let them discuss the issues themselves and to come up with their own policy positions on them. So we focused on 4 issues that are most pertinent to youth. That's global governance and sustainable development, youth and green jobs, an ombudsperson for future generations, and the sustainable development goals that are in the works. And so out of New York+20, out of this day, this interactive, amazing day of over 120 young people coming together in New York and over 250 people coming together online to participate in the conference, we developed our own youth statement. So I will pass this around and you can all read. But this is our product from the day, but also what we will be taking to Rio+20 to represent American youth, and building on with the My City +20 movement around the world. So I won't read the whole thing to you, but please do read it and pass it on to your own organizations or delegations. We hosted a side event at the United Nations just after New York+20, and we got a really great feedback on the statement from French and Hungarian delegations that wanted to work with it and work with us to represent these views, and from civil society that wanted to partner with us to build on it. So some of the main points that I think are important under international environmental governance is the idea of accountable sovereignty. So the young people that were working with this issue wanted to establish national sustainability commitments in a public registry, but also convene a global independent body with input from civil society to make a second set of commitment recommendations. So that's their vision of what this global environmental organization that you were talking about, Andreas, could look like. Something that's not just international and multilateral, but really focuses on the national input into this process. And then flipping over with the green jobs, one of my favorite points is to create peaceful livelihoods through green jobs. So that's leveraging green jobs as a strategy to demilitarize nations by providing alternative options and livelihoods for youth. So that's really bridging this gap between what green jobs and what sustainability can do for the security of a nation by empowering the youth in a different way. And then with ombudsperson, so we proposed creating an ombudsperson for future generations that can foster long-term thinking in the practices of all agencies of the United Nations. And then the Sustainable Development Goals you can read, but continuing that conversation and using different metrics for measuring happiness and for measuring then the GDP. So finally with this statement is, as youth, we didn't want to just sit there and ask our governments to do things for us. We wanted ourselves to commit to what, as young people, we can do in the United Nations to empower ourselves to really make change. So that's where our youth commitment comes in at the bottom. That we, the inheritors of the earth, see Rio+20 not as an outcome, but as the beginning of a long-term process and movement for the future we want. We commit to being ombudspersons in our own lives by educating our communities on how to impact the international dialogue on sustainable development. We pledge to work in partnership with youth around the world to advocate for policies and programs that ensure the future we need. So that is our commitment as youth in New York, and going off that youth around the world that we will bring to Rio, and hope that our governments will represent us and partner with us on these issues. Because what we found with New York+20 and the entire My City +20 movement is amazing examples of partnership. So partnering with people that are already in the field, with ambassadors, with UN representatives that were willing to work with us and work with young people to engage us in the process. Working with universities and foundations such as Ford Foundation that would give us some money to actually do this because young college students didn't have the funds to hold this huge conference and feed people. But also working with each other and not just getting together in a room and debating things, but actually forming friendships that span the entire globe, from us to Paris to Mumbai, because we're all really interested in the same things, and with respect for each other in the process, we can share our backgrounds and learn from each other and really make the process representative of these different backgrounds. And this is, in our opinion, what the UN needs. We don't just need to be sitting in rows looking up at a screen debating certain words, but really getting in there and sharing with each other our different views and really making strong commitments for our future and for my future generations as well. So, thank you.